where does things start coming crashing down for you in the correctional atmosphere of what's going on in Salinas? When do things start taking a turn for the worse and you start feeling like your back's up against the wall?
When I like I said, when I did the Thanksgiving riot, and that's when it started. Right there, it started crashing down. All the officers were saying Vodicka's an inmate lover. We can't trust him, and watch what you do around him, and that little tax snitch and all that, and it was starting to bug me. And then a couple weeks later, in the AdSeg unit, I worked that same AdSeg unit on D yard. It was on a weekend. I was doing a swap for overtime, and we had to do cell extractions in there. Several cell extractions on inmates in there, white inmates, and a certain captain named Tony Hedgepeth. He was a captain. He worked ISU as a captain, fair captain, straightforward. And he goes, "Hey, Vodicka, I want you to be my video guides." Because anytime a cell extraction happens, you have to have a video person. Mm-hmm. And you have to identify yourself prior to going in. You have to give them your name, your number, your badge number, what you're doing prior to going in. Well, there was a certain officer that when he came up on the video, he said, "My name is Officer so-and-so." It's in the book when people get the book and read it. It's Officer so-and-so. And he identified himself, and he said, "I'm the leg iron man." Now, automatically, he got the W, and he threw it right up on his chest. He identified himself. Hey, so he's part of the wall. You're not supposed to do that. You're not supposed to throw a gang. Hey, I'm this. And I had a video. So shortly after that, I told Captain Hedgepeth, I said, "Hey, this officer," he said, "What, Vodicka?" I said, "Yeah." So Captain Hedgepeth looked at the video, saw the video, took the video to the warden, and the warden wanted an investigation on that officer. That officer was with the CERT, which is a SWAT team in the institution. It's an untouchable unit. He was kicked off that unit, and he was put under investigation. Yeah, he was one of the key members of the Green Wall. So after that, it was just little parts of it. It's all called morals and ethics. And then after that, when I was ordered, years after that, around 2001, I was called up to the warden's office. And when I got up to the warden's office, the warden asked me, "Hey, Vodicka, stop on in." I said, "Yes, sir, can I help you?" He goes, "I need to know all the knowledge you know about this group called the Green Wall, these prison guards who call themselves the Green Wall." I said, "Sir, I work with these guys. I have to work with these guys every day. I know a lot about them and know the knowledge because inmates were coming up and telling me, 'Hey, Vodicka, I was beaten up by these inmates.'" These inmates were in level 1. Down to level 1, these Green Wall members would go down there and tune them up, break their radios or whatever.
Wow.
They go to level 1 inmates. The level 1 inmates program.
Yeah.
They go down there. So I knew a lot of information when the parties were, who was part of the Green Wall. So he wanted to know my knowledge. Well, shortly after that, I'm in the office, and I said, "So I got to work with these guys." So, "Well, Officer Vodicka, you telling me you don't want to write this report?" I said, "Not really, sir." He says, "Well, I need you to write the report. I'm giving you a direct order now, Officer Vodicka. I need you to write a report." So I said, "Okay, sir, fine. I'll write it." So shortly I went home, and he said, "I want that report on my desk Monday morning." It was like a Friday. I said, "No problem." I went home and contacted a good friend of mine who was at Pelican Bay. His name was Joe Reynoso, personal friend.
Yeah.
Great guy, knows what he's doing.
Yeah.
Just has ethics and morals just like him. He taught me well.
Yeah.
So I typed up the report, confidential report, and I stamped it 2 or 3 times, and confidential, and I turned it in. Mm-hmm. About 2 months later, Steve, I was approached by these guys on the Green Wall members from ISU investigations. Came down to the vehicle. I worked the vehicle Sally port, where that happened.
Where they come in and come out.
Yes, sir. Yeah. And then I seen these guys come in and jump off a cart and go, "What the heck's all us going by?" And the 3 of the guys about my size, come walking in and I go, "Hey, Vodicka, we want to talk to you for a minute." I go, "Yeah, what's going on, guys? What's going on?" He goes, "Hey, well, I want to go talk to you in your little box, your little office right there." So, "Okay, come on in." As soon as they stepped in, they shut the doors. I'm like, "Oh, this ain't gonna look good."
Yeah.
And they quoted verbatim of my memorandum at what I gave to the warden. They quoted verbatim.
Wow.
And that confidential memorandum, Steve, is in the book.
Yeah. Wow.
And they quoted it, and
that's amazing.
I lost it from there. I mean, when they left out and they said, "Vodicka, you're a dead man. You're a dead man, and you ain't going to survive here very much longer in this prison. So your days are numbered."
So you're at this point, your mind's you're going everywhere. You're going a mile a minute. Did you stay on and try to find some way to de-escalate the situation, or did you know I have to contact somebody for my safety. I have to contact somebody for job security, if you will, because you're going to lose your job with this pressure that they're putting on you. So what was your actions right after that? How did you keep it together?
No, it was, I went to my union. I tried to go to my union there, and none of them would talk to me. The job stewards over there wouldn't talk to me, and they'd just blow me off. So shortly after that, I contacted Joe Reynoso, who was he was up at Pelican Bay State Prison. Then actually he was working with SSU, it's a secret. They're the big unit out of Sacramento. They're the ones that investigate higher ups, staff members, and all that. Or SSU, certain handpicked. So I called Joe up and I said, "Hey, what's going on? What's going on?" I told him. He goes, "This is bullshit. We're going to get you out. We need to get you out of that prison. We need to get you out of that prison." And then shortly after that, one of the internal affairs sergeant, a guy named Zell Middlebrooks, real nice guy. He knew me from way back when and when I was in the unit. He said, "Hey, I'm going to reach out to the Inspector General. I'm calling them. I need you to talk to them. Will you talk to them?" I said, "Absolutely." And I remember going home that night and I get a phone call on my phone. He said, "Vodicka, hey, this is Inspector General Mike Ramsdale and somebody else. Hey, can we come to your house and talk to you?" I said, "Absolutely." He said, "Well, we got about a 3-hour drive. We're heading over to your house now." So they ended up coming to my house that night, and I ended up getting in one of their vehicles, and we took a drive out to the country somewhere. And I sat there and I told them everything that I knew on tape.
Yeah.
And they said, "Hey, we're gonna put something together. We need to go back to our headquarters and tell our bosses what's going on."
Yeah.
So shortly after that, about 2 or 3 weeks later, I'm still at the prison. I took some sick time off because I was stressed, man. I was like, I was going to be a dead man. If I walk the yard and get set up by an inmate, these green wall members could, some inmate might want some dope or whatever, and he's never getting out.
Yep.
Hey, take him out, man. We need to take him out, get him out, and we'll bring in some dope.
Yeah.
No, and we'll talk about this later on some more interviews and about them not backing me up on a call. And,
okay.
So shortly after that, I waited, and then all of a sudden, I'm working. I came back to work, and all of a sudden, the vehicle sally port, and all of a sudden, I see these 4 or 5 unmarked vehicles coming up to my vehicle sally port, and right away, I knew who they were. It was Inspector General, who the guys I talked to.
Yeah.
They were unmarked black vehicles, pulling the vehicle sally port. "Hey, say, Vodicka, everything okay?" "Oh, well, sort of, a little bit." And I said, "How come you didn't let me know you guys were coming, Rich?" And he goes, "Well, we don't want to tip anybody off." So they pulled into the They pulled into the prison system, checked their guns and weapons, and they pulled into the system right up to where internal affairs unit was and all that. They jumped out of the car. They stormed the IA unit. They told every officer in there, "Stop what you're doing. Get the hell out of this office." And then they went into the captain's office. "Stop what you're doing." They removed log books, computers. They were taking stuff out to put in their cars. And at the time, they raided the warden's office. There were 2 guys up at the warden's office who stormed in the warden's office and told the warden to step out. And so they stormed his office and took documents out of that office. When that happened, Steve, I was a dead man. Because everybody knew Vodicka ratted us out. My phone's ringing off the hook. You're a dead man, click. I didn't want to, and I got a hold of Rich Ramsdale and said, "I'm done. You guys need to get me out of here." "Well, hold on, Vodicka, take it easy." I take it easy. I said, "No, you need to get me out of here. I'm a dead man." I'm protecting the convicts and inmates from what these guards were doing. These guards were abusing inmates and convicts. I mean, these guys.
What were the most common things they would do other than like beat downs? Would they doctor up paperwork? Would they do I don't know. We always hear stories, myself doing time in prison. I used to always hear stories about some of the things they would do, but maybe you can
they were planting weapons in inmate cells. If there was a shot caller on the yard they didn't like, or Southern Mexican, black, white, Mexican, Crip blood, and the shot caller wasn't doing what these guys were, controlling the yards and cleaning up their own yards, they would pull the shot caller out, cuff them to the upper rail up on the top, up there, cuff them up so they can watch the cell search. They'd walk in the cell search and they'd turn around, and one of these guys in the jumpsuits would pull a weapon out and say, "Hey, Steve, this yours?" "No, that ain't mine." Put it under the pillow. "So that's your weapon." They'd pull weapons. They'd pull weapons out of their locker rooms over in the investigation, uncontrolled weapons, and they would plant it in their cells.
Yeah.
They would document up the reports. They would lie on reports. They would falsify reports during interviews with inspector generals for IA. They would, because they thought they had the backing of the warden.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, they did. They did, because your report that you wrote ended up in their hands. So to a certain extent, it seems like they actually did have his support.
That's correct. But the funny thing, too, is the chief deputy warden who was at the prison with the warden was there. The warden never showed information with the chief deputy warden, which was a guy named Ed Caden, who's in the book. Ed Caden didn't know anything about the Green Wall. He knew, but didn't know that the warden was keeping all the documents there. So those two guys were butting heads. They were power. They were like, not getting along with each other.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm not sure if it was before or after you. I don't know if you've even heard about it, but I actually had a cellmate one point in my term who was in Salinas, and I don't know if you had heard that there was like demotions, there was a couple firing, a couple transfers behind beating an inmate. I think it was an ad seg. They did it. Well, that guy ended up being my cellie. He still had the newspaper article of it all, and I was just curious if you knew about it and if that was before or after.
It was after I left. After I left, and that was, those guys were, they were part of the Green Wall, but they got booted out of the ISU because they were, they can't have those kind of members in their officers. So they went down to that new ad seg. It was a new ad seg down there by the vehicle salad part. Remember that, the new ad seg down there?
Yep.
And there's a guy named Officer Chavez, Officer Faulkner, a couple of them. They worked for a name. He was a sergeant down there, or lieutenant named Treadwell or Salaya or whatever. He worked that unit. And yeah, I remember I heard that if this correct, the inmate was on the exercise yard and he wouldn't come off, or something to that effect, and they wouldn't come out, and they told the gunner upstairs turn off the cameras. Yep. There's cameras on all the yards. Yeah, and they went down there and they tuned them up.
Yeah, that's exactly the same way he told it to me in the cell. And at the time,
how would I know that if I wasn't there?
No, you're exactly, you hit it right on the head. That's exactly what he told me. And it's crazy. So many years later, he still kind of lived with a sense of like panic of the Green Wall. We were at this point, we were cellies actually in Corcoran. So this is at least, I don't know how many, 10 years later or something. I can't remember, but I just remember him telling me, like, I'm very low key. I don't like attention on me because of the simple fact, if they pull my name up, they know who I am. So I just wanted to just throw that out there, because it actually almost, your time period, I met somebody who actually went through exactly what you went through, and it's crazy that you could corroborate the story down to the T like that. But to get back to where we were at.
Those guys were investigated and put on administrative time off, and some of them were terminated and fired. But get this. Later on, it's so crooked in the Department of Corrections, State Personnel Board and all that, they were out for years, 2 or 3 or 4 years. They got their jobs back. The union, the union got involved, because the Union of California, CCPA, they're powerful. They've got money to back them. So yeah, those 3 or 4 officers who were terminated from doing that actually got their jobs back with back pay.
Oh man. This stuff, it's so rampant nowadays. It's all picked right back up again. It's getting worse. Tehachapi was real bad. These guys are getting bad. And they, like you said, they go from the 4 level, because I was on the 4 yard, they go from the 180s all the way to the level 1 for that fine tuning shit. And I don't know. I just feel like this interview right now couldn't come at a more important time, because what's happening right now, it's kind of the unheard crisis of what's happening. And there is this code of silence. I've literally been beat down one time when I was in Wasco. I was stopping by for reception, and I got beat down pretty. I committed a battery, and the officer that was escorting us ended up physically restraining me. Real huge guy, real big guy. And I'm not trying to fight the guy or nothing like that. So I'm trying to submit, proning out, and I'm getting torn up, kicked in my ribs, all kinds of crazy stuff. And the one thing I'll never forget, is that not only were the fellow COs and the sergeant, everyone in on it, but the nurses. It was so powerful that even the nurses fabricated I can't remember the numbers for that medical sheet, but they fabricated.
7219.
7219. They fabricated one, never saw me because my rib was cracked. He cracked my rib by kicking me so hard and I couldn't breathe. But it's still to this day happening. But hey, let's get back because this is getting juicy, man. So let's go, man. We're back in rush hour.
My wife is laughing over there. She's enjoying this interview. I mean, we've been together 15 years, and she's, it's tough. This is going to be, when I had to go up, we'll talk a little more about you read about, but when I had to, after I testified in the Senate hearings in 2004, I was invited to the state Senate hearings, government oversight with Senator Jackie Spear, Senator Romero, a bunch of other senators up there. And my lawyer, Lanny Tron and Joe Reynoso, they escorted me in. I was in a full bulletproof vest. I was flanked by Highway Patrol coming into the state capitol in Sacramento on January 21st, 2004. 3 years after this green wall took off, and I had a subpoena to testify in the state capitol. Anyways, and I walked through the halls where the Governor Schwarzenegger was in there, and I'm walking down the halls, and I enter the courtroom or the auditorium, and it's like packed house. I mean, there were people lined up on the side of the walls listening. They couldn't find a seat. The senators were all top and above, and when I testified that day, Steve, my story hit the front page of the LA Times. I mean, Mark Arax did a huge story on me months before that. I didn't know it was going to hit the LA Times when I was testifying, but it hit the front page of the LA Times. It went AP, Associated Press, all over the United States.
Wow.
And then I remember walking down there in a bulletproof vest with my suit on and my lawyer and swearing in. I sat there for about an hour and a half, 2 hours in front of the senators talking about what happened to me, and they were appalled. And the Department of Corrections they couldn't do anything. They couldn't. I offered for protection and all that. My lawyer said give him protection, and they said no, we can't do that right now. And as soon as after that, Joe Reynoso made a phone call to his people, and they said let's move him. We're going to move him. That night they moved me up towards where Mount Shasta is, Northern California.
Yeah, was it to have you work in another prison, or was it just to relocate your housing?
I was in hiding off the grid in isolation up in the high country in the mountains for 6 months.
Wow.
They moved me into a cabin that's isolated. Nobody knew where it was. And I was up there from January 21st, 2004 until, July or August 2000, something around that frame.
Wow, man. Wow.
Shortly before my father passed away.
Wow.
They needed to move me quick because, I was all over television, all over everything. I dropped the ball on the green wall.
And they told you were a dead man. You believed with everything that is in you that you were a dead man, marked to be a target by this green wall gang.
Right.
Oh wow.
And it wasn't, I wasn't marked by the convicts of inmates. They were happy and after I testified, Steve, after I testified, my lawyer, Lanny Tron out of California, Camarillo, he was getting letters. He'd go to his mailbox, open it up. There's like 15 letters in there from inmates and convicts thanking him for what I did, bringing this to light because it opened up a can of worms for lawsuits to happen in the Department of Corrections.
Yeah, and I think since then it's been a floodgate of more rights for inmates. So I could tell you personally from my experience, I probably would have wrote you a letter saying, thanks, good job, be safe. Because, man, we're pretty much the dog that's on the floor with no legs. You know what I mean? At that point, the
thing is my book, Steve, right there, The Green Wall, you can get on Amazon or Barnes & Noble.
Yes.
They banned my book from going into the prisons. I tried.
Wow.
You cannot get this book into the California Department of Corrections. They won't allow it to come in. They will
to this day?
To this day.
Oh, wow.
They won't. Some books have, from what I understand, some prison activists have contacted me through Twitter and all that. Some books have gotten through. But when that book hits the mailroom, They throw it, trash it, or kick it back to the sender. They won't
Yeah,
allow it to this
that
day.
doesn't surprise me. That doesn't surprise me at all. So okay, so they put you in hiding. You know, you testified. When you testified, were these officers there with you? Was the warden there, or was it just you testifying? You know, basically without their presence there. What was that like?
I testified in front of the Senate hearings. The Secretary of Corrections was there. His name was Rod Hickman. He oversees all the Department of Corrections.
Okay.
The union president, a guy named Mike Jimenez, he was our chapter union president. He was there. And let me just back up a little bit. When I got transferred overnight from Salinas Valley State Prison, because of all this stuff, they moved me to Pleasant Valley State Prison.
In Kalinga.
Kalinga, yes, sir.
Okay.
I was over there for about 6 or 7 months, 8 months. And when I got there, I was, told, hey, you want to be part of our ISU squad? Why would you think I want to be a part of an investigations unit that is always dirty?
Yeah.
They're always dirty. They're tainted.
Yeah.
So I ended up working for a captain on the yard. I used to work with at Corcoran when he was a counselor. His name was Ryan Williams, great guy and all that. So I worked for him over there. He took me under his wing. He knew what I was going through because he said, you did the right thing. Everything you've done the right thing. And his deposition testimonies in the book, he backed me up.
Okay.
So shortly after that, months had gone. I responded to alarm on the housing. I was a yard officer on a D yard. And the alarms go off on the housing units. Everybody responds. The yard lays down. Officers run to the building. The door opens up. I'm running across the yard, and there's several officers behind me, close to me. I get to the first tunnel. I get to the second tunnel. I'm like, and I turn around to the little tunnel area where you guys go through.
Yeah.
I turn and I look behind me. All the prison guards stopped at the front door. They didn't want to come in. They set me up.
Wow.
Somebody set me up because the inmates in the housing unit were fighting. Mexicans and blacks were fighting.
Uh-huh.
And one African-American inmate was standing next to the grill where the grill goes.
Oh.
Was standing inside the thing. He had a broomstick.
Oh, wow. So you're right. So you're in the middle of the tundra. Are you saying the tundra to go in?
Correct.
Okay, for people that don't know, it's about a 6 to 9 feet walkway enclosed by walls. And once you walk through it, then you're into the unit. But until then, what's above you is the gunner. You can see him walking around up there. And other than that, there's bar gates that shut off both entryways if need be. So what he's saying is that what you're saying, DJ, is that all your coworkers stayed on the yard basically and didn't enter the tundra.
That's correct.
Oh wow,
wow! They didn't enter the tundra. They stopped on the yard.
Wow.
So I didn't see him because I'm always looking back with my baton drawn. I'm like looking back, and as soon as I said I stopped, about 2 feet from entering into the day room.
Yeah.
And then all the guards stopped at the door, and then I said no. I backed up because later on I found out there was a black inmate standing there with a broomstick ready to nail me coming through.
Ooh, damn.
So then after that the day room got put down on the ground and all that, and then the lieutenant and the sergeant comes walking over there, and I looked right at the lieutenant. I said you're a piece of
yeah,
and
yeah.
You set me up, and I told him I'm done. I walked out. I walked up to the warden's office. The chief deputy warden was in there, and I walked in his office, and I said, "You knew this was going to happen. You didn't protect me. I'm done." I told him, I'll see you in court one day."
That's right.
And that was my last day. And then right before that all happened too, Steve, getting back to the testimony, Mike Jimenez, he showed up at Pleasant Valley State Prison like about a month before I got set up. And he was out there, and I walked up to Mike Jimenez and said, "Hey, Mike, I'm Officer Vodicka. I've been trying to get a hold of you several times to let you know you know about me." And he looked at me, and he looked at my nameplate. He goes, "Oh, you're Officer Vodicka. I've been advised not to talk to you." And he walked away from me.
Wow.
He was told by his lawyers and all that. He walked away from me. And the reason why, Steve, because they were protecting the dirty cops. Mm-hmm. They represented the Green Wall members.
Yeah. Yeah, that's you were right to just say, you know what, you didn't protect me, I'm out of here. I think if you would have stayed in Pleasant Valley, because honestly, I think that was kind of a bad call to take you from Salinas and send you to Pleasant Valley as if that was really going to be the cure. Because first off, COs move around and bounce around as well as inmates. That happens often. Word can travel quick. I'm sure, it wasn't too long before everyone in Pleasant Valley knew what your situation was. Not just the lieutenant or captain you were working under, but everybody probably knew pretty quick.
Oh, absolutely. When the phone travels, you know how the phone is. They pick up the phone and say, "Hey, Vodicka's at your prison. He's no good. He's a rat.
Yep.
You guys better watch out yourselves." And then the word travels.
Yeah, man.
But yeah, shortly after that, then I went out on stress and workman's comp. Then I retained my lawyer, Lanny Tron, out of Camarillo. He was the only lawyer that stood by my side. And for 5 years, I had in litigation with the Department of Corrections. And even the Department of Corrections told me in several meetings with Lanny, said their lawyers and attorney generals and all that said, whatever Officer Vodicka has, he's going to bury the Department of Corrections. I mean, I have so much documentation I have with me right now and evidence and all that. And Lanny always told me, you kept all your documentation. And I did. I kept everything.
That's good. So as far as –
I still have it.
Oh, wow. So as far as everybody who was held accountable for this big old situation that was taking place, was it internal affairs? Was it the warden? Was it captain, sergeants, or was it everybody? Who all ended up being held accountable for this when testifying was done with? And I imagine everything went in your favor in the courts, right? As far as
I never made it all. 2 weeks before trial, we went into a settlement conference, and the mediator in there, who was a retired senior judge and all that for the Monterey area, told the Department of Corrections, says, you guys don't want to, you better litigate this and settle this with Mr. Vodicka, because you really don't want to take this into court, because it'll open up a can of worms for everybody, and you guys might probably want to make good with him and all that. And it was a tough time for me during that time, because I lost my father a couple months prior to me going to my last litigation, and then I was taking care of my mom, and shortly after this all happened, my mom passed away shortly after that.
Sorry to hear about that, brother.
Yeah, it's tough. My father really influenced me to write the book and share it. I never wrote a book in my life, and my wife, the same thing. She told me, get in that room over there and start typing. You've got all the documentation, and keep typing, and just keep going. Just keep going. And she was 100% behind me, and to this day, she's 100% behind me. And
that's awesome.
I just started typing. I never wrote a book in my life, and I probably will never write another one.
Yeah.